welcome back to another episode of Two Nerds with Mics. I'm Joe with my good friend Chad. It's race week, so I know I'm excited, and we have a little bit to talk about. We got the Bahrain race on Sunday, and we might be live streaming that. Well, not the race itself. We don't want to get sued, but sitting there watching it and live updates. But yeah, I'm excited. I mean, what are you feeling?
I'm super excited that F1 is back. Curious to see if anybody has made any leaps and bounds closer to Red Bull. But I was nervous about one thing that Verstappen said, that the car was faster than his last one. So that makes me nervous because his last car was obviously the most dominant car we've seen in F1 in a while. So, but I am excited that the season's back. Excited to watch some racing. So,
yeah, I watched some of the testing, and I think one of the most fascinating things to me is that, I don't know if we even talked about it, but the fact that even Toto's come out and said something about, like, Red Bull basically stole the zero pod design, and it looks like they've gotten it right. So the shit version of the W13 and 14 with the zero pod that they abandoned, it looks like Newey just figured it out and was like, you know what, I think I'm going to run with that and build it. So that's kind of shitty. But yeah, if the idea was there, and if Red Bull's nailed it, then we have basically a repeat of last year. But I'm excited. I feel like a lot of the constructors last year caught up, at least to where, at least I wasn't necessarily catching Verstappen, but the midfield was more fun. You know what I mean? It wasn't as spread out, so we did see a lot more battles. So I'm excited for Bahrain. Do you have any yearly predictions? Or do you think, I know it's way too early, but hopes, I should say?
My biggest hope this season is I want to see someone challenge Red Bull consistently. Last year, Ferrari, Mercedes are always in the mix. I feel like Ferrari was the closest to Red Bull out of the top three big constructors. But I'd really like to see, I just want to see that gap close. I understand Red Bull is kind of dominating the constructors and the driver's points with having the best car on the grid. And I just want to see somebody kind of close that gap. And I want to see a more competitive season. I hate calling it boring because, F1 is exciting, but it was a bore because every race you're just like, well, Verstappen's going to win. Because he was just gapping cars like crazy. So it's I just want to see the competition ratchet up. I want to see closer races. I just want it to be competitive and not just, Verstappen's winning his fourth straight championship, which, yeah, that's cool. I'm not going to take that from him. He's earned it. But, if this year is a repeat of last year, I'm just ready for the new rules to kick in so the competition can switch again. So,
yeah, I think that's
what about you?
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Was it 2026? That means we have 2 more years of
basically Red Bull possibly dominating. Yeah,
I mean, it's not good for the sport. And like I said, even in the dominating eras, you had way more competition. Also, this is the longest race year. 24 races.
24 races, yeah.
It's the longest calendar, and I'm happy with it because I can watch it all year. But that's a lot to travel. All those people. That's a long. I think they were in a press conference today, and Sainz was like, "Yeah, I feel like I just raced in Abu Dhabi. I feel like that was 2 weeks ago. I mean, we get a winter break, but it wasn't shit. So it's like, we're back. Okay, I didn't feel like, because I mean, that's why kind of all the stats don't really make a difference now. And people are like, oh, you've beaten everybody in points. And it's like, what's that Schumacher era that we had 17 or something, somewhere around there. It wasn't as long of a season. So yeah, I feel like that's a huge money grab. But I mean, like I said, as a fan, as long as it's something to watch, it should be interesting. But prediction wise, I'm hoping. I know Mercedes always sandbags, but they have some interesting trickery. They have that wing, that front wing with the little wire, and then I don't know if you saw, but they have a variable suspension. They have it's like bolted on, and they can just swap out the suspension real quick.
Interesting.
They found another loophole, and I was like, and I saw some pictures. So basically, if they want to change their arms in the back, they just unbolt it and pop another one on. So I was like, now if they can change the suspension setup per track and free practice for each layout, they could really like bring it. So I don't know. I'm hoping it'll be a better year, but I'm with you. If it's the same thing, I don't. I'll still watch, but I'll probably do something as I watch.
Yeah.
Like work on something, just have it in the background. Won't be as attentive, but yeah, I'm excited. We're here Sunday, so with that, I know we talked about it a few times. It looks like Christian Horner was, what's the right word for it, absolved or cleared of any misdoing, or at least they found. What is your take on that?
Not surprised. Obviously, we're never going to get the allegations because Red Bull is never going to let that leak on what the allegations were. We just know that it was inappropriate behavior. We don't know the extent of it. We don't know if it was a young woman involved, and or not young, but just a woman in general involved, if she pulled back, wouldn't cooperate, or if they just didn't find anything, or Red Bull's protecting the brand. Like, we're doing the internal investigation. We announced it, but we didn't find anything, so we're going to just dismiss everything and go about our business. I do want to ask you, though, obviously this is hypothetical because he's going to be head of Red Bull this year. Do you think if during the investigation that they found some type of inappropriate behavior where they had to dismiss Christian Horner, do you think that would have affected Red Bull negatively this season, or you think they still would have been as dominant?
That can go a few ways. I think it would, because he's been there since the beginning. Like Horner's been there the longest of any team principal. 15, 16, I don't know, crazy amount of time. As a team principal, it's your job to, I mean, it's a hard job. I wouldn't want that job. I wouldn't be able to handle the stress. You have to, all the pressure is on you. So, I mean, I'm not a fan of Christian Horner, but he does a damn good job at being a team principal. So, will it affect the team? Yeah, it affects your mechanics. It affects your drivers. You're the central point for that team. I did ironically catch in the press conference today Verstappen. So I think someone asked him, about the allegations, and Verstappen, very, as you would expect, was like, "I don't care. I'm here to drive."
Yeah, he's like, "I'm focused on racing and the car, and that's all I want.
I don't give a shit." And I'm like, "Well, it's very Verstappen." But I think it does affect, and it goes for any team principal. I mean, we had the allegations last year with Susie and Toto, which was bullshit too. And that, yeah, I would have said if Toto's gone, which Toto's my favorite team principal, and I like Susie Wolf too. But yeah, that would have been detrimental to that team. I like Red Bull as a brand. I've always liked Red Bull Extreme Sports and everything, and I don't like the F1 team. I feel like it's very toxic, and the fans are toxic, and so it's hard to say. But I think, it would put a dent in the future, and it depends on who you replace them with as well. And I'd say this year I think it's the first year in F1 that we have had no driver changes, but we have like a bunch of team principal changes.
Yeah,
I mean, at least fresh, within a year or just starting. So, yeah, I think that dynamic will change the outcome of the year too, of what direction people go. So,
yeah. Fair enough. All right, last question about F1 before we move on. Where do you think Sainz ends up next year? because we know he's going to be away from Ferrari because they are signing Hamilton, and they're not going to get rid of Leclerc because he's their youngest driver. So where does he go?
I'd say he has a 50% shot of not getting a seat. It's hard to come from Ferrari. You're kind of in that Daniel Ricciardo space of where you're going to end up. So we have a lot of new drivers, a lot of young drivers. Carlos is 33, 34, which isn't old by any means, but in the F1 world, you
He's
got
getting up there.
decade on some of these people. I don't think there's going to be anything available. And I think that's going to be a flip too, because they're dropping the drivers. Audi is not supposed to re-up with Zhou or Valtteri. So
Yeah.
I think it's going to be an interesting couple of years. And I think Mercedes is already eyeing, I don't think they take them, but they're eyeing, I think Toto made a statement. It's like, hey, we didn't have a seat available. We could have got Max, but we didn't have a seat available. And now they're going to gamble on like this young up and coming star that is like really young, like Max was. So I think there's a 50% shot he doesn't have a seat. Unless Fernando retires, I can see him going to Aston. But everybody else is, get rid of Ocon. I'm not a fan of his really, but I don't know. I don't think anybody else is going to go anywhere. Like I said, we haven't had any driver changes this year, so I don't think a lot of people are. Haas maybe, but like I said, you're going to go down. It's just going to be a shitty. You're going to go into a shitty car. He's going to go into a shitty car, and not have. What about you? I mean, what do you think?
My prediction is very off the rails, but I'm going to stick with it. Red Bull doesn't sign Checo. Sainz moves to Red Bull. Checo moves to either Mercedes or McLaren. No, because they have Pistori and who's the other guy that drives for McLaren right now?
Lando. They're in long term. They're in
Lando. Yeah, they're in long term, so you can't go to McLaren. Oh, okay. Sainz goes to Red Bull. Checo goes to Aston Martin because Alonso Fernando retires. That is my guess. The only way I don't see that happening is if somehow, and I don't think Red Bull will do this because he was already with Red Bull, they move Ricciardo back to Red Bull. And I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't know. I didn't think that either, but I like to smash through the Drive to Survive. I like the behind the scenes stuff. I mean, I was like, this year's going to be boring, but you get to see a lot of stuff. It looks like Horner has a chub for Ricciardo though. Like he was.
I mean, he's still on their their farm league, but he's still driving for that other car. So,
yeah, but like it seemed like he was very. Oh, he's still part of the family. He's still, and like they wanted to bring him back because they put him. One thing I learned, and I remember them doing that. They put him in an old Red Bull to test him.
Yeah,
and he was on point. He was on par with Max. So like, okay, give him the job. So if he's driving like that in an RB, then he might take that seat. I know Checo's gone. We know that.
Yeah, Checo's leaving. I feel like last season we saw the downturn of that relationship between him and Max, and Red Bull pretty much is already they've put all their eggs in the Max basket. What Max wants, Max gets. And I think Max doesn't want Checo to be his teammate anymore. Like, I honestly think Max doesn't want a teammate that is going to be as competitive as he is. Like one of the things I think about a lot is like, would Max and Lewis ever survive on a team together? Because I always wondered, what if Red Bull decided to go after Lewis or Mercedes decided to go after Max? I think Max would hate that relationship because Hamilton is just as competitive as he is. And Max likes to be the dominant one on his team. Like, he likes for everything to flow through him and then the second driver. Whereas Hamilton, he's an alpha just like Max. So it's like he's going to want everything to flow through him. And I just think their dynamic would never work. Where I think we started seeing, like Checo he's not a bad driver. It's just he doesn't have Max's car. Like Max's car is insane. And you can't tell me that Red Bull developed the same cars, because if they did, Red Bull will always be 1-2. Always. And that was not the case. So obviously Max's car is way more developed, in my opinion, than Checo's. And I think that was on purpose. Like, I think I don't want to say he sabotaged Checo, but I think Red Bull showed favoritism to Max. And Checo got the shaft, and it made him mad, and he had right to be mad. Like, hey, I'm supposed to be your teammate. Like, I understand that, we're going to rival each other, but it shouldn't be like this. Like Hamilton respects George. Like, they're teammates, they're rivals on the track, but you could tell that he celebrates George when he wins. Like, he likes George. I don't get that sentiment when it comes to Verstappen and Checo. That's just me. So that was a little bit of a rant right there, but I just wanted to get that out there.
No, you're good. Like, I want to, just to piggyback on that real quick. There was 5 years ago, when Valtteri was on Mercedes, there was a race, and it shows you what kind of teammate Hamilton is. I mean, of course, everybody wants to win, but Valtteri let him go on team orders to try to chase someone down, and he was in the points for a championship. He was racing, and he's like, okay, if I don't get it, I'll give it back to you. If I can't catch this person and win, you get and he did. He let him go right at the checkered flag and let him pass and took third place. I don't see anybody do that. You know what I mean? That's just like, no, it was his call, And Max was like, you did something to me in Monaco 8 races ago. That one race, like, was it last year, the year before? Like, he's like, fuck you. And I'm like,
yeah,
what the hell? So yeah, I just want to say, like, at least one thing I like about Hamilton is that move right there shows you that he does care about the team as well as, and you don't get that from Max. It's like he's got to win. So you're absolutely right. But yeah, so race day Sunday. So
it's going to be nice to see lights out again. So let's hope for a clean race, and let's hope for some excitement.
Yeah, I think
like some competitiveness.
I think there'll be a couple hits, a couple dead cars.
Yeah. Hopefully no DNFs. I don't like DNFs, but I understand they do happen. So, in other nerd news, I read an article last week that Sony is already starting major development on the PS6. And the reason behind that, from what I read from the article, is that they're starting to see PS5 sales slow down. And they think that, the adoption's over. Now they're just getting the people that are like 50-50 on getting a PS5. They got the hardcore people. And now they think that the luster for the PS5 is dying. And so they are starting development of the PS6. Also, Joe shared that Microsoft has moved up their timeline for developing a new machine too. So Sony is kind of looking at that and like, well, shit, they're developing one, so maybe we need to. The other caveat to that is that Sony is trying to go off the sales of the Switch to justify, okay, our sales are tanking. And it's like, you can't compare yourself, in my opinion, to Nintendo, because that's a completely different demographic. Those aren't hardcore gamers. Like, Nintendo caters to the casual gamer, the child gamer, or like family oriented. They're going to pull all those, not just the hardcore gamer, where Sony and Microsoft, you're going to get the more hardcore gamers playing those systems. So I think their logic is skewed. But it also, it made me think about like the time frame of next gen consoles. Back in the day, we were getting consoles like every 4 or 5 years. There was a new console dropping. And that's because the technology was advancing so quickly that they had to create new consoles. And then right around, I think it was the PS3 and the Xbox 360, that's when we started to see longevity in consoles. I think those two consoles ran for about 7 to 8 years. And then we got the PS4 and the Xbox One. And then those ran for about 7 to 8 years. And then we had the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S. The PS5 dropped in 2020. we're 3 years in and you're already starting to like hardcore develop a PS6, or 4 years in. And my thing is, and somebody pointed this out in the article, like it was an article written by somebody that was referencing another article. They made a good point in their article saying that, in their opinion, the Sony PS5 is just now hitting its stride. Being that you got to think the first 2 years of the PS5's uh, shelf life, you couldn't get one. Like they were almost, it was almost like a holy grail trying to score one. You had to watch all these different drops. You had to beat bots. Like it took me about a year to get my first PS5 because I was trying to fight all these freaking bots and whatnot. And so if you really think about it, the PS5 is just now taking off because now you can go into a box store or go online somewhere and be like, oh, I want to buy a PS5, and you can get one. You don't have to wait. So I think Sony just needs to chill for a little bit, let the PS5 continue to do sales because it's still doing gangbusters in my opinion, and then start like, okay, now we can start thinking about the PS6 because none of the developers that make the games for the PS5, in my opinion, have tapped into the power that this thing has. Like, I'm a Sony diehard fan. You all know this already. The Xbox Series X is one of the most powerful consoles I've ever played. But to me, the PS5 is so much more refined, in my opinion. It's like, let people develop for this thing first before you run off and like, let's make the PS6. Like, let's chill a little bit. Like, let's let this marinate. The PS5 is still in its infancy. Like, I don't know, man. It was just, the article really threw me for a loop. But tell me what you think about hearing about the PS6 already.
The thing that just popped in my mind is The Last of Us. So The Last of Us came out at the end of the 3 cycle, and it used every bit that it could. And then we had Last of Us Part 2 that came out at the end of the PS4 cycle, and that was, maximizing the hell out of it. I think, like, if you see another Last of Us, it's the end of the cycle. Just that'll be your precursor.
Gotcha.
But no, playing the games that I played recently, and like I said, I just got mine. I'm happy with what it is. Like, I'm immersed, and they're beautiful. It blows my mind. You know what I mean? And like, I don't need, as a console person, I don't need, I'm not, you can hit me with all the graphic shit of a PC and all that, and that's fine. But I'm happy sitting on my couch playing these games, especially with Sony's story titles. But we're not getting more advanced, we're getting smaller. And I feel like, well, minus the Apple chips and stuff are pretty advanced, but yeah, it's like we've hit kind of our point of, this is what we can do. Now we're just making it smaller, or now everything's frigging AI or machine learning. So I think we've definitely hit a plateau of technology. And I think that might cause a struggle with, we can't develop. We can't make something new, so we have to get people in this freak out boat where they have to just slap a number on it. It's a new iPhone every year, new PlayStation every year. And I think now it's a subscription, and we'll upgrade your current thing to some. I think we're going to see a fundamental shift in the next decade of just how shit works. But with that, like I was telling you earlier, Microsoft was already developing way before that cycle that you brought up. And I think that, if it's definitely going to play a hand, because Sony is definitely has more sales, but is not as powerful. So if you have Microsoft, they're already developing it, and you kind of have to, you go that way. You kind of have to start pushing to develop. But again, like, what are you developing? Because there's nothing outside of what we talked about with like the ARM chips. There's what advances are you making besides how small and how much power can you pack in a small box? And the PlayStation 5 isn't a small box by any means. But it's interesting, and I'm big about backwards compatibility at this point. So if I buy something digitally, I want it to run on a PS8. You know what I mean? I want it to be, that's what I care about at this point. You want to make new shit, that's fine, but don't waste my money. You know, that's my big concern with that. Not so much there's another device out there, but just getting my shit. I want to skip a few generations and still play it. Kind of like your phones. If you're going to go that route, you know, do your security patches, do your updates, let my shit run, and then I'll upgrade every 3 years or something, you know. So that's where my headspace is at on it.
Well, and I think if Sony is smart, they'll do what Xbox does, where Microsoft, like, there's only a handful of games for Microsoft that are truly coded for the Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S.
Mm-hmm.
Most of their games, like I have like a lot of the Madden games, or I have like a lot of the Forza games. I can go between each system and play those. Doesn't matter. And I think as the systems develop, you're going to have to adopt that. Like you said, backwards compatibility is going to be big. But I also think one of the ways they're going to combat that, and this is just speculation off my head, they're going to kill physical drives at some point. Like it's people are taking to the digital space a lot better than I thought they would. And I think we're going to get to the point where you're going to get consoles that they're no longer going to have spinning optical drives, but they're going to have like 2-3 terabytes of storage from the factory. And if that's the case, technically you should be able to be backwards compatible, because all you got to do is change a little bit of coding for the game to be able to run between any system. So, I mean, we'll see. Like, it'll kind of depend. Like, you know, right now they don't really do any. Like, most games that are coming out right now, I think some of them you can play on a PS4. Most of them are PS5 only. But I do wonder, like, with the back catalogs, like, are they going to start making it where it's just like, you know, for a while there for the PS4, you could play PlayStation 1 games. And, like, I think a handful of, like, PlayStation 2 games. It wasn't very many. Are we going to start seeing more of that? So, you know, I think the future is definitely bright for the console world. It's just going to be, what path do you take? Because there's going to be a lot, and you got to make sure you take the right one to stay competitive and to stay relevant. Because PC gaming is big. Like, Steam is a powerhouse, and a lot of, like, Microsoft has a leg up on Sony because Microsoft almost releases every game in conjunction on PC, where with Sony, they wait a little bit and then release it on PC because obviously they want their core brand to get it first. And I completely get that. But I think at some point you're going to have to be like, well, there are a lot of PC gamers and they're missing out on some of our flagship games. We're going to have to do something. Like, so it'll be interesting. I just, you know, I was very surprised that they publicly came out already discussing the PS6. Like, I'm sure they had already been talking about it internal, but to, like, share it with the masses, I was like, that's pretty soon.
I mean, with that, do you think we're going to see the end of the Pro eras?
I do. I think there's no point in them anymore. Like, I mean, Xbox, obviously, maybe because, you know, they have the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S. But at least with PlayStation, with how powerful the PS5 is, I just don't think you really need to make a PS5 Pro.
Yeah.
I would be surprised. And if they did it, I would look at it as a cash grab more than anything. Because we're not even tapping into the potential of the PS5. Like, the PS4, I understood because some games were starting to max that system out, even before The Last of Us did. And they needed, and you had gamers wanting, like, better graphics, more demanding of their hardware. So that made sense. With the PS5, until I see a developer actually stretch the machine, I don't think there's a need for it. I think it'd just be a cash grab, and I think it would piss off a lot of your fan base.
I agree with that.
Personally.
Yeah. Speaking of Sony, though, was not expecting that, but apparently they laid off 600 or 900 employees. And, like,
That's
I think
crazy.
a whole studio, like SingStar or something like that. And I don't know. I feel like it's crazy. It's like seeing as many layoffs as we have in the tech world, and we talk about all this tech and that's needed. But yeah, I was surprised by that, and that's worrisome to me. That's a lot of employees.
Yeah.
So I I don't know if that has to do with it or if that ties in because I just read about that. But then if you like 900 people might not, it's a lot of people, but it might not be as bad as like we think. So if you look at the credits at games now, there's 900 people globally. So,
Right.
I didn't get that deep into what it cut, but yeah, so they're obviously, they stopped doing E3. They're, save money. Now they're cutting. So I just hope that, but I'm going to go back to my other prediction is Apple will come in and
Save the day.
save a day or do a partnership. So yeah, we'll see.
I think Sony's too powerful for Apple to take over it because I mean, when we talk about Sony, yeah, we're speaking about the video game aspect, but you got to think they're a multimedia company. They make hardware, they make TVs, consoles, camcorders. I mean, you name it, they make it. But then they do movies. Then they have a music division. So it's like, for as big as Apple is, I just don't think they have the cachet to actually try to buy Sony. Now, the partnership, that could happen because these are two tech magnets. Like, they are two tech giants. And for them to merge, it'll kind of be like what Microsoft did with the Activision Blizzard merger. Like, that rocked the gaming community because you had Microsoft who, yeah, they're known for computers, but their gaming division is solid. And they bought the biggest gaming company of the modern era. Like, so, there's a lot of possibilities. I mean, it's sad to hear about people getting laid off, but I mean, these are corporations that know what they're doing and they got to cut money somewhere sometimes. And, I hope it's not because of the sale drop off of the PS5, but we don't know. They're never going to tell us why they're doing layoffs, but I mean, it happens. And hopefully, something gives in the future where maybe they can open that division back up or rehire some of those people. But, you never want to hear about layoffs, especially with a company that you follow. So,
yeah. Well, I guess we'll switch to a lighter news and end this on the Sony verse. So I just finished God of War Ragnarok. And I know we were really hyped up about Spider-Man 2. And that's something, I don't know, Sony just does this to me. They make great games, but I'm kind of on the fence of what I like more. I didn't like God of War coming from Spider-Man just because of how like the platform was.
Mechanics.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, I can't jump. But like story-wise, that game, without giving anything away, it took us by surprise. Every corner, you were not expecting shit. We're like, holy hell. And it was fascinating and it was different. And I think that's really rare nowadays. I know they have the God of War's been around a long time, but like the merging of this Greek, Spartan, and God, what do you call
Norse mythology.
Norse, this blending of Norse and Greek mythology, or just these worlds. Yeah, the story was fantastic. The gameplay, the bosses, so I don't know. I don't know. I just wanted to share that, publicly, that I don't know which is my favorite. Both.
Oh, that's cool, man.
They're awesome games. Thankfully, they were a year apart, so they weren't both up for game of the year.
No, that's awesome. Like, that's dope that you were able to play a game that captured the magic that was Spider-Man 2 in a completely different way. So, that's dope. It goes to show you just how much Sony lets their developers put into a game. Like, we're not just putting out shit. We're putting out things that are going to grab and hold you.
Yeah, it was fantastic. So if you're not, what's the last one you played?
Three, or what was the last one that was on portable? Was it Ghost of Sparta?
Ghost of Sparta.
That might have been the last one. Whichever one of those two came out last was the one I played last. God of War 3 I loved. I played it like 3 times because I just loved the storyline, and I loved the fights in there were just, the scale of them was insane. Like, fighting on Hera's back, or not Hera's back, what was her name? But she was the Earth, basically, and fighting on her back, and then fighting Hades, and just the sheer scale of fighting the bosses was insane. And the graphics for PS3 were just off the charts at the time. Speaking of games, real quick, I want to end on this note. A game I'm looking forward to that I just read a review for, and it just made my warmth for this game go to like level 9,000. It's a game called Pacific Drive, and it's basically you're in a dystopian world on the West Coast, and it's just you and like a vintage 70s station wagon.
I understand that.
It looks epic to me, like, because it screams to my 80s inner child. The soundtrack is supposed to be amazing because it's just like art funk and just electric and just like 80s. And then like in the review they were saying like it's the first time you've played a game where like you have anxiety just trying to get back to your car because you don't know what's going to happen. And then you get in your car and it's like the car may not start. And it's just like, they're just like, it just keeps you on the edge and it just sounds off the chain. So I'm like super amped for this game. Like probably going to get it day one. And it's a game like we haven't seen before. And that's what I'm super excited about. Like it's a fresh take on the survivalism. Like normally it's always like fucking zombies or something like that. Like now it's just a car and you're just in this dystopian future. And it's just like, dude, it looks badass.
Yeah, I remember the trailer. I forgot the name of it. Yeah, I couldn't really place what was going on besides, are you trying to survive? Yeah, so there's a lot of mystery behind it. It kind of has that Alan Wake, what's going on kind of feel of just like, I don't know what to expect. Has like some Stephen King Langoliers. Like I gotta like keep moving because the Earth's getting eaten or some shit. So yeah, that'd be a curious one to see what that's actually about. But yeah, I remember that one.
So tonight, nerds, we want to end it a little differently than what we normally do. I just want to throw out some things that I read or heard about these past couple of weeks and just want to kind of get Joe's opinion on them. So the first one I want to throw out is I don't know if this is fake news or not. We don't know if it's a ploy from the band to get recognition, but a band from Tennessee made headlines because two of the band members were friends and they were working out together, and one of the bandmates fell in love with the other bandmate's fiance. So to try to take the fiance from the bandmate, he started spiking the bandmate's protein shakes and drinks with estrogen to make him more feminine, thinking that this would in turn have the fiance not want to be with him anymore because he's too much like a woman and go to him. And the dude apparently got drunk one night with the bandmate and just spilled his whole story to them about what he was doing to him. Now the guy is trying to see if there's any legal action to take and all that, but I don't even know. Like it was. I've never heard of anything like that before. It blew my mind.
Yeah, the mentality behind, okay, so I'm going to make you more feminine. Like, is that the society we're living in? That
apparently
that's where your idea, I mean, we're old school, sort of, where it's just like, you want something, you're going to fight them in the yard or something. You're going to, we're like natural things, natural human things. And like, just that's hilarious that's your avenue. As far as legality, I would say that's pretty illegal. That you're doing anything chemical without someone knowing, that is a crime, in my opinion. But
I mean, you're changing this person's chemical balance.
Yeah, that's messed up. That's weird. That's that's hilarious, but that's pretty fucking weird.
I know,
that's a new one,
right? I thought you would like it, especially being you've been in bands, you're a musician, so I just thought that would. Like, maybe that'll make you pause now for any band that you sign on with. Like, wait a second. Do any of y'all think my wife is attractive? Because if you do, we're going to have a problem.
Recording somebody and, feeling emotional right now.
Or if you have any bandmates that are like, hey, man, you want to go work out? No, I do not. I work out on my own. Thanks for offering, though.
That's hilarious.
Another thing that I saw that was interesting, as you know, Tesla has dropped a new Model 3, a newish Model 3 called the Highland model this time. So it's just a little bit of a redesign. They're making it a little more streamlined. So they kind of changed the headlights to taillights. You now get a screen in the back for passengers. They added more speakers. You get ambient lighting, little touches like that. But I thought this was super interesting. It was spotted in Spain, a Model 3 with a plaid badge on the back of it. And there have been talks of Tesla wanting to create a high performance Model 3. And it looks like they might have actually created it. Now, the speculation is obviously the Tesla Model S Plaid has 3 motors on it, which makes it immensely powerful. That's also a bigger car. The speculation is that the Model 3 is too small to have the 3 motors. So people are saying that they don't think it's going to have the bonkers like 1,200 horsepower, but they're expecting like 600 to 700 horsepower because they're going to maximize as much as they can out of those dual motors. So what do you think about possibly, and the price point apparently will be around $60,000 for the Model 3 Plaid. So what do you think about that?
That's where my first thought was. It's like, oh, is it going to be like Audi, where if you're going to get the next model up, it's a 20,000 jump between. So I'm like, okay, so we're going to Plaid and be up there anyway. That's where I was with the Model 3. I actually looked in the Model 3. I might have even been on the waiting list. I don't remember, or like at least close to. With all that, you're still going to get panel gaps. So it's tempting. I mean, especially with the price of cars nowadays, like shit is stupid. Like I don't even want to like buy another car at this point. So
Average price of a new car is $38,000. Last I checked.
It's crazy. And for something like you wouldn't want, like the stuff that you want that was almost affordable is, yeah. So at that price point for electric, it's almost worth panel gaps. But I'd be interested. At least worth checking out and looking into at that.
When I was in the market for a car, I really, really, really thought about a Model 3 Performance. I really, really thought about it. And unfortunately, I can't get behind Elon. That's my own personal. Nothing against anybody that follows Elon. That's your thing. I can't get behind him. And so I just couldn't imagine giving my money to him. That's just me. Like, I don't use his products. I don't use Twitter or X, whatever the hell it's called. Like, I don't use Teslas. So that's just a personal thing for me. If Elon were to step down from the board of Tesla or sell the company, I'd probably be all in on Tesla. But my personal beliefs, I can't give my money to him. And again, that's personal. I have one of my closest friends. He owns a Model S. I don't think anything less of him because he has a Model S. He's always wanted an electric car and he loves Tesla.
Yeah.
Hey, that's him. I don't judge him for that. I ride in his car all the time. So it's just for me personally, I'm not going to give my money to Elon. That's just me. And he understands that. He respects that. I think it's a smart move for them because you're going to draw in a lot of the younger people that was going out to buy like Mustangs and Dodge Chargers and Challengers and kids that wanted like fast cars for cheap. 60 grand isn't cheap per se, but a lot of the young tech industry, that's a price point they can fit in. And I think these things are going to sell like hotcakes. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see if they actually release it. But it is being muled right now in Spain. So at least it does appear that they have at least one model. So we'll see.
Or it's just a plaid badge.
Fun fact. I didn't know this. Do you know where he got the idea for the plaid? Spaceballs.
Oh,
so when they jumped to hyperspace,
yeah.
And then Darth Helmet, they jumped to, what was it called? I can't remember the name of their jump. But then they're like, oh my God, they went plaid. So that's where he got it from. Did not realize that. So the last thing I want to touch on that I thought was interesting, these are for y'all that may still eat fast food on a regular. Me and my wife, we try not to. But there are times where you just, time is of the essence and you got to eat fast food. We typically go to Wendy's. That's kind of our favorite fast food place. Wendy's, during a shareholder call, announced that they are going to do dynamic pricing. And I think this is the most asinine thing you could do in the fast food world, because the whole point of fast food was it to be cheap and convenient. Like, granted, not healthy at all, but cheap and convenience. That was the point of fast food. So for those of you that don't know what dynamic pricing is, the object is that, say you went to a Wendy's and it wasn't very busy. Well, then the prices on the menu are going to reflect that, oh, this is a slow time. We're not really pushing a lot of food. Prices are lower. But then say 5, 6 o'clock hits, which is usually your dinner rush. Oh, we have a lot of people coming into the restaurant through the drive-through. We're going to raise the prices of our food. And they'll be able to do this fluctuating through the day. And let's just say that it has not set well with the American people. Last I heard, 37% of people who eat at Wendy's said, yeah, we're not doing that shit, and we will not be going to Wendy's. Now, I have heard that the CEO is pulling back on the dynamic pricing, but I don't know how true that is. I haven't read into it myself. But, like, what do you think about that? Because, you know, right now, rideshare programs do this. Lyft and Uber do this during what they call peak carpooling or peak rate times. So, like, when I lived in Chicago, between like 4 o'clock and 7 o'clock, they surcharged all of the rates because they knew people were going to be commuting the most right there. So they knew they could maximize their profits right there. So this isn't uncommon, but we haven't seen this in like fast food. So what do you think?
I'm glad you brought that up. I actually did read that, and I read the headlines, and I didn't even get into the article. So I'm like, that's not real. Two things I can think of is that is me. I generally hate crowds and people. People gross me out. I don't like to be in like tight spaces with people, especially with like COVID and stuff. But like, I'm the type of person that will go off hours. I'll go to Wendy's or McDonald's at 2 o'clock, not 12 o'clock. I'll suffer and then eat when I don't have to wait. And I hate waiting. So that's what I'll do. Just close enough to where it's not been sitting there for 5 hours. So part of me is like, I'm all for that because I'm going to eat cheap, even cheaper for doing what I already do. Again, I don't know what's. I'd have to see like what the price fluctuation is. Like how high does it go when you're going from like $1 cheeseburger to a $5 cheeseburger? And the only benefit I can see, but I know from a corporation standpoint this isn't the case, is if you pay your employees more. Because I've worked fast food, and it's shit. It's during those times it sucks ass. It's a lot of work, and you got a lot of kids. So if you're, you know, these people are working shit jobs. So if you're going to raise the prices, I'd expect you to pay the people more. And I know they won't because corporate America's assholes, greedy people. But that I'd be okay with that if it comes to the point of like, hey, these people are, and if they make my shit right and it's busy and they do a good job and it's a shit job, I'm okay with paying an extra dollar. It's like a tip, but I know it won't do that. So that's kind of where my thought is. It won't fly. I don't think. But again, we kind of go back to what we're talking about, the PlayStation. We're just going to see a lot of weird changes in subscription-based. I mean, they already have the Frosty, where you can go get a Frosty once a week.
I don't know if they still do that.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like they're testing subscription-based food items. So yeah, it'd be interesting. I think it sets a bad way for other companies, but yeah, I wouldn't eat, or I would eat at those times where it was cheap, because fast food's stupid right now.
Right. Like there's videos of people going to like McDonald's and places, and like, you know, it used to be a value meal, it was like $4 or $5 and they're paying like $12, $13, and it's just like, that is insane. Like for food that'll kill you.
On that note, people, just my suggestion. I'm a couponer. I used to make fun of my mom growing up, but yeah, I will try to find deals on absolutely everything. So at McDonald's, do a deal. There's a buy one get one on like McChickens or McDoubles, and you can get a free fry with that. So for $4, you can get 2 double cheeseburgers and a large fry for like $4.13 or something. So if you're just my tidbit for the week, if you want to eat cheap, do that and just drink water.
Yeah. No, legit. That's good. Like, download the apps. Like, they may be annoying, but the apps will have deals in them. And a lot of the fast food places are finally starting to do rewards programs where you get free food. So, if you are going to eat fast food, try to eat it smart. Try to be subjective with your money when it comes to it. Just don't, I'm going to keep going to get a number 13, even though it's costing me $15 every time I go.
Yeah,
be smart with it. And on that note, kids, it's been another great episode. As you know, this is Black History Month, so I like to end with a Black History fact. Unfortunately, I don't have this one off the top of my head, so I got to go to it. I want to celebrate Mr. Garrett Morgan. He invented the 3-light traffic signal in 1923. So I think that's really cool that a black man actually was the inventor of the first 3-light traffic system, which is now obviously used every day in today's society. So congrats to you, Mr. Garrett Morgan. That is a huge achievement, and it is used every day now throughout pretty much every country that has modern roadways. So congrats to you, Mr. Morgan. I think that's dope.
That's pretty cool. That's crazy that it was that early, too.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, I was going to kind of piggyback. The last fact I had wasn't a fact. It was more of like...
The movies.
The movies. And I kind of thought, like, what's inspiring or what's eye-opening to me? And I thought hard about this for the last couple of days. And I was like, well, I can just go to fact, but I kind of want to kind of go on that same route. So, and this gets kind of nerdy, too. So, have you seen Watchmen? The movie?
I've seen the movie, yes.
Okay. Have you seen the HBO one-season take of Watchmen?
No, but I heard it was amazing.
Okay. So Damon Lindelof, he was like in Lost and The Leftovers. He's done a lot of big shit with like Bad Robot and stuff. He did a really interesting take based off as 30 years after the Watchmen universe, that movie, what happened. And it started off, and he made this and based it off this. And it was just as eye-opening for him as it was for us, because I didn't know this. But the movie really highlights racism, and it kind of goes back in time and forth with like 2019 and 1921, the Tulsa Race Massacre. And
yeah, where they burned down Black Wall Street.
Yeah, and I had no idea this happened. It's just like you're watching, like, what's this movie? What's this about? And then like you find out, and I felt just like, how was that never taught? And that's why he did it, because it's like he didn't know about it, and that's like a huge fucked up thing that happened in this country. Like, it is super fucked up, and he does a really good job of using that universe to bring up something that happened with that, and then also bring up our now society bullshit that we talk about sometimes on this pod, of just race and just hatred and just prejudice. And I don't know, I really thought about it, and I think, like, if you like Watchmen, definitely watch the movie, read the comic, and then if you can, watch so it's one season, it's just one story based off of that universe, and it really just highlights all the things that need to be changed and why things need to be changed, and just, I know, that's kind of where I want to leave it, because it wasn't, nobody knew about it, I definitely didn't know, and I think it's just something that should be highlighted as something that happened in this country that should never have happened. So,
no, if you ever want to watch two things about the not two things, but two depictions, or one depiction, one somebody finding out about it, watch Tom Hanks finding out about the Tulsa Massacre. Okay. Like, it is fascinating. Just how he described finding out, and then his reaction to it. And then, did you ever watch Lovecraft Country on HBO Max?
No, it's on my list. I have not yet. They
touch on a lot of, there are some episodes that I cried watching them because they touch on Emmett Till. For those of you that don't know who Emmett Till is, he's the young 14-year-old that was murdered when he was visiting his cousins down south because he allegedly whistled at a white woman and come to find out that it never happened and these assholes murdered a fucking child. But they talk about that and it actually depict what he went through, and it is gut-wrenching, and it is one of the most powerful things I've ever watched. And they have a whole episode dedicated to the Tulsa Massacre, and it is powerful. So, it's really cool that you educated yourself about that. It is a very dark time, and it's not taught because they don't want to admit that, yeah, we did some foul-ass shit one night in Oklahoma and basically destroyed an entire fucking community because they were black. But hey, this is America. Man, that was a dark note to end on. But the last thing I want to end on for Black History, support black businesses. If you have a black business in your town where you live, doesn't hurt to support it. Doesn't hurt to just go buy something from them. Like my job this month, a lot of the places that we got catered food from were black businesses to help support them. So, support locally black-owned businesses. It could be just a place that does bakeries, baked goods. It could be a place that's a mom-and-pop candle shop. It could be a place that repairs shoes. Like, it doesn't matter. If it's black-owned, just try to support it. Like, we throw our money at some of the dumbest shit. Why not support something good? And I'm not saying support every mom-and-pop business, but especially during, the month that, unfortunately the shortest month of the fucking year, but the month that we got, definitely try to go out and support a black-owned business. Like, it's tough out here being black in America. I'm not going to lie to you. And I always want to see my people shine. So I'm always going to throw them bread when I can. So that's my 2 cents. And with that note, kids, it's another episode. We're glad you tuned in, and we will catch you all on another episode. Remember, like and subscribe, comment in the bottom, and we'll see you all on the next episode.
Thanks for listening.
Peace.